The world is witnessing critical events shaping our future. From escalating conflicts in the Middle East to natural disasters in the United States, the headlines are alarming. Today, we'll cover the ongoing war in Iran, the devastating wildfires in Georgia and Florida, and the humanitarian crisis in Sudan. Here are today's top 10 stories you need to know. The U.S. State Department has issued a travel advisory for a Caribbean nation due to rising concerns over crime and terrorism. This decision is a response to increasing incidents that have made travel to this destination more dangerous for American citizens. Authorities highlighted specific areas where violent crime has surged, including armed robberies and gang-related activities. The advisory encourages travelers to reconsider their plans, emphasizing the importance of personal safety while abroad. This move comes amid broader discussions of national security and the responsibilities of governments to protect their citizens. As tourism is a vital part of many Caribbean economies, this advisory could have significant economic repercussions. Local businesses that rely heavily on American tourists may see a decline in bookings, which could affect their financial stability. It remains to be seen how the government of this Caribbean nation will respond to the advisory and what measures will be taken to improve safety. The situation underscores the ongoing challenge of balancing tourism with the realities of crime and safety. Severe wildfires in Georgia and Florida have forced thousands of residents to evacuate their homes. The fires, fueled by dry conditions and high winds, have consumed large swaths of forested land, destroying numerous homes and threatening communities. Firefighters are battling multiple blazes across both states, with containment efforts hampered by unpredictable weather patterns. Residents have reported losing their homes and possessions in the rapidly spreading flames. Local authorities have declared states of emergency, enabling them to deploy additional resources for firefighting. This disaster highlights the increasing frequency of wildfires in the U.S., attributed to climate change and prolonged drought conditions. The economic impact on affected areas is expected to be significant, as local businesses face closures and loss of revenue during the peak tourism season. As the fires continue to burn, the community's resilience will be tested, and recovery efforts will be crucial in the coming weeks. Sudan's civil war has now entered its fourth year, exacerbating a dire humanitarian crisis. The ongoing conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces has resulted in widespread displacement and suffering. Millions of people are in desperate need of aid, with food shortages and lack of medical services compounding the situation. International organizations report that access to essential supplies is severely limited due to continued fighting and instability. The conflict has created a complex web of humanitarian needs, with many families forced to flee their homes in search of safety. This ongoing crisis calls for urgent international attention and assistance, as the situation grows increasingly dire. Governments and NGOs are working to provide support, but the challenges of delivering aid in active conflict zones are considerable. As the war continues, the international community must address the root causes of the conflict and prioritize humanitarian efforts to alleviate the suffering of the Sudanese people. The ongoing war in Iran has claimed at least 3,375 lives, according to the latest reports from Iranian authorities. The conflict, which involves not only regional forces but also the United States and Israel, has led to widespread devastation. The Iranian forensic chief provided this updated death toll amidst ongoing military operations and airstrikes that have decimated several towns. The humanitarian situation is deteriorating rapidly, with many families displaced and in need of urgent assistance. International reactions to the conflict have been mixed, with some nations calling for a ceasefire while others continue to support military actions. The war has also triggered significant geopolitical tensions, leading to debates over foreign intervention and sanctions. As the conflict escalates, the potential for further loss of life and regional instability grows. The international community's response will be crucial in determining the future course of this conflict and its humanitarian implications. Recent developments in the Israel-Lebanon conflict have sparked discussions about a potential ceasefire. As tensions escalate, international mediators are pushing for dialogue to prevent further violence. The situation remains volatile, with both sides exchanging fire along the border, leading to casualties. The implications of a ceasefire could be significant, not only for the immediate region but also for broader geopolitical relations. A halt in hostilities could pave the way for humanitarian aid to reach affected populations and allow for a diplomatic resolution. Observers are cautiously optimistic, yet they acknowledge that trust between the parties remains fragile. The international community is closely monitoring the situation, as any agreement could influence ongoing negotiations regarding peace in the region. The urgency of the situation calls for decisive actions that prioritize the welfare of civilians caught in the conflict. If successful, these talks could mark a pivotal moment in the quest for stability in the Middle East. Iran has intensified its military operations in response to ongoing threats from Israel and the United States. Recent airstrikes targeting military installations have raised concerns about the potential for wider regional conflict, as these actions escalate an already volatile situation. Historically, Iran has viewed U.S. and Israeli activities in the region as direct threats to its sovereignty, prompting a series of military responses aimed at showcasing its defense capabilities. International observers warn that this escalation could lead to a dangerous cycle of retaliation, with both sides likely to engage in further aggressive actions. The situation remains critical, with analysts emphasizing that diplomatic efforts are faltering, increasing the risk of an all-out war. The humanitarian impact is dire. Civilians are increasingly caught in the crossfire, facing displacement and loss of life. The international community is urged to intervene and promote dialogue to prevent further escalation. If sustained military actions continue, the ramifications for regional stability and global security could be profound, potentially reshaping alliances and power dynamics for years to come. After a brief pause, negotiations between the United States and Iran have resumed, aimed at curbing the escalating conflict. This renewed dialogue comes in the wake of increasing military tensions, particularly regarding Iran's nuclear ambitions and its regional influence. U.S. officials are cautiously optimistic about the potential for diplomatic solutions, as both nations have expressed a willingness to engage in discussions despite significant disagreements. The Biden administration faces pressure to balance national security interests with a desire for peace in the region. Analysts emphasize that these talks are critical, as they could lead to a reduction in military actions and an increase in humanitarian aid access to affected civilians. The international community is closely monitoring the negotiations, recognizing their potential to reshape the geopolitical landscape in the Middle East. A successful outcome could pave the way for improved relations and enhanced stability. As both sides prepare for further discussions, the next few days will be pivotal in determining the trajectory of U.S.-Iran relations and regional peace efforts. Global stock markets have shown signs of optimism amid hopes for an end to the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East. Recent reports of potential ceasefire agreements and renewed diplomatic negotiations have sparked positive reactions from investors. Markets across Asia, Europe, and the Americas experienced gains, with traders eager to capitalize on what they perceive as a stabilization of the geopolitical landscape. This optimism reflects a broader sentiment that a resolution in the region could usher in economic recovery and enhance trade opportunities. Historically, prolonged conflicts in the Middle East have disrupted global supply chains and created volatility in oil prices, impacting economies worldwide. Analysts suggest that while the situation remains fluid, the willingness of involved parties to engage in dialogue is a promising development. However, they caution that any sudden changes in the conflict could swiftly alter market dynamics. The potential for sustained economic growth depends on achieving lasting peace and stability in the region. Investors are closely monitoring the situation, as the next steps in negotiations could significantly shape market trajectories in the coming weeks. The conflict in Iran has escalated dramatically, with reports indicating a significant increase in military engagement from both Iranian forces and their adversaries. The Iranian military has ramped up operations, targeting key locations with airstrikes as part of its strategy to assert control. This surge in military activity comes amid rising tensions following accusations of external meddling in Iran's internal affairs, particularly from Western nations. Concurrently, U.S. officials have indicated a readiness to respond to any threats to American interests in the region. This escalation raises concerns about the potential for a broader conflict that could draw in additional nations, reminiscent of past regional wars. The humanitarian fallout is becoming increasingly severe, with many civilians caught in the crossfire, leading to a growing refugee crisis. International organizations are calling for an immediate ceasefire and increased access for humanitarian aid. The geopolitical ramifications of this conflict are profound, affecting energy markets and international relations, particularly in oil-dependent economies. As military actions intensify, the urgency for diplomatic solutions becomes more pressing. Looking ahead, the international community must prioritize negotiations to prevent further violence and stabilize the region before the situation spirals out of control. The ongoing conflict in Iran has escalated dramatically, resulting in over 3,300 fatalities and widespread devastation. This war, fueled by a complex interplay of internal dissent and external influences, has drawn condemnation from various nations, prompting a re-evaluation of diplomatic relations worldwide. Countries such as the United States and members of the European Union have imposed sanctions targeting key Iranian sectors, while others, including Russia and China, have expressed support for Iran's government. The humanitarian crisis is exacerbating, with millions of people facing displacement, food shortages, and inadequate medical care. International organizations, including the United Nations, are mobilizing resources to provide essential aid, but access to affected regions remains severely hampered by ongoing violence. The implications of this conflict extend beyond Iran's borders, threatening to destabilize the entire Middle East. Neighboring countries are bracing for potential spillover effects, including increased refugee flows and the risk of sectarian violence. The global response is crucial. Leaders must prioritize a coordinated approach that addresses both immediate humanitarian needs and long-term political solutions. As diplomatic efforts unfold, the international community must remain vigilant and proactive, fostering dialogue that could pave the way for a sustainable peace. The coming weeks will be critical in determining the trajectory of the region's stability and security. Thank you for watching today's news roundup. Which story shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates.